Hi everyone, welcome back to Falcon's House. Today we are going to cover Westworld Season 3, Episode 5, entitled Genre. The episode opens with Serac explaining how his brother helped keep them alive after Paris was nuked. Serac thought God had abandoned them, but his brothers said that God had never existed, that humans were going to be extinct without a god, so that they worked on creating one, which ended up being Rehoboam, but they went through a lot of iterations prior to that. But every time they went through and tried to create an iteration, unpredictable people existed that they weren't able to predict what they were going to do, so the simulation would end up failing. He has the meeting of a president of some country. It looks like Brazil's flag, but I couldn't really tell. And basically this guy was cheating on the way that they had planned, and it was causing unrest in the northern part of the country. And basically Serac told him to stop, or that he would replace him because he had that level of power. So basically Serac in this world has a lot of power because he controls the tool that basically charts humanity. Which I guess kind of makes sense. I'm trying to think of a way that it wouldn't make sense, or people wouldn't agree to do this, but I think once you had the power of prediction, it'd be really hard to argue against it. He not only can predict the future, he can influence its outcome, and at that point, you can't really stop that. He's the most powerful person on the planet. After the opening credits, there is a scene with Serac and his brother where they try to meet Liam's dad to fund the building of the AI, and because he has the personal data of the entire population. Basically, I think this company is the equivalent of Facebook, except even more detailed. They were listening and recording everything and had all sorts of personal information on everybody to be able to build out the profiles to predict people's actions. And in this scene, he wants to shut down the project because it's expensive, and they don't seem to be getting anywhere. They've been able to predict past events, but not been able to predict the future events. Serac's brother wants to kill him because they want to be able to continue the project. In the current time, Serac finds out that Dolores has kidnapped Liam, and Dolores is taking Liam along with Caleb, and they're going through a tunnel trying to escape where they were, while Serac is attempting to chase them down. And Liam tries to escape and injects Caleb with the digital drug that he got in the last episode. It's called Genre, and effectively what it does is it makes you live life as if you're in a different movie genre with background music and dramatic lighting and all this other things. Which is an interesting concept, and it does look like it was fun to film the episode this way, and especially for the editors to go through and use all sorts of different lighting techniques and putting in different filters and everything else to make it seem like this. But on the other hand, it didn't really advance the plot, and it wasn't really necessary. They could have just let it be, and the episode still would have been fine. They get chased by Serac's men, and so they had hailed a rideshare car, and then Serac's people said there was an Amber Alert, and it caused them for the car to stop and everything to get locked down, and they're just kind of stuck in there. So Dolores is able to convince Liam that in order to save all of them, she needs his access code so that she can rehack everything else that's built on Insight data. So he agrees eventually after they're getting shot at and stuff, and she's able to hack the car and retake control and drive off. And then there's a huge car chase scene that was pretty cool. It was probably unnecessary. I guess up until this point, they haven't really had the opportunity because we've been stuck in Westworld and all these other things without motor vehicles. And now they finally have a chance to do such a thing, so they do it. But a lot of this episode I felt was like unnecessarily over the top. And this is another thing. But Liam ends up shooting this rocket out of this gun that has like a tracking drone thing. So like he misses and it flips around and it propels itself right into the target, which we kind of have technology like that exists today that can just redirect rockets and everything else. So it's not that far future-esque. So Connells, who had that version of Dolores, had kidnapped Bernard and had shut off his thinking or whatever so that she could just lead him around. But they eventually decide that he needs to go in as himself to act more normal when they infiltrate Insight, so they can access the direct node and get Sirach's data, and then Dolores and Caleb meet up with his other criminal friends, like Marshawn Lynch. I don't actually know what his character name is. So, the thing with they needed direct access to the node, which is what Liam thought they could never actually achieve, which is why he was finally giving out its access code, because they were away, but they didn't realize that Dolores had copies of herself and actually had the ability to be in multiple places at once. Another Sirach flashback, and this time they prove that they can predict and change the outcome of the stock market, and made Liam's dad $95 million. So he's excited about the project again. But so what they did was they basically took $5 million and then manipulated the market to get to $100 million. But all he cared about was money, and so that's what it did. But Sirach and his brother had actually started plotting the course for all of humanity. Like, they would be able to affect anything that they needed to make everything better for everyone. Dolores and everybody else are on a subway and decide that the best course of action is to release the information that Insight has on everybody so that everybody knows what their data shows. So they start sending out these pings, everybody's phones, and they can see all this data. And for the most part, it's negative. Like, they don't expect people to reproduce, or they shouldn't reproduce because they're going to cause issues, or they have a genetic trait that isn't undesirable, or for like in one case there was a daughter who she was going to commit suicide in 8 years, even though she's just a little kid at this point. And so the way it basically was a police state or whatever, that basically everything was controlled without people actually knowing they were being controlled. Well, guess what? That is exactly like how the hosts were in Westworld. They had people that were a narrative team that basically gave them stories and forced them to do things. Except here it's being done in the real world. So you know that some people, like Ford, probably knew that this is how the real world worked. And in some ways, maybe he was trying to free humanity the same way he was trying to free the hosts once he decided that it wasn't going to work anymore in the park. And that's why he started changing Dolores and started changing Maeve and everything else, was to force this fight into the real world, because that was his end game. And maybe, in a way, everything is still being controlled by Ford.